Hear me okay? Okay. Thank you all for coming to Symbols from Scratch. Good. So thank you guys for coming to Symbols from Scratch. My name is Leigh Prier, and I'm the owner of Prier Design and Consulting. And what we do is we provide outsourced design services to dealerships from all different manufacturers and product lines. And we also do one-on-one CET mentoring as well as customized CET training. So a little about me is I've been in this industry for about 20 years, and I've worked as both a dealer designer as well as a project manager. And when I started, I was a very heavy CAP user, so I'm one of those people that transitioned from CAP to CET, and I actually did it back in the early days because it was in 2008 that I was asked to join the Smart Tools Beta Test Group for CET. So I've been working with the program ever since then. So now that you guys know a little bit about me, we'll go ahead and get started talking about Symbols from Scratch. So what does that even mean, right? Everybody in here has furniture extensions, right? You have all these catalogs you have access to, extensions, project symbols, but inevitably there's going to be a day where you're faced with this dilemma of, I have to spec this piece of furniture, and there's no symbols for it in either an extension or in project symbols, right? So then you're going, okay, how am I going to do this in CET? And so that's when you're faced with having to create your own symbols, which is what we're calling symbols from scratch. So when we talk about symbols from scratch, what we're going to be focusing on today are the basics for how we can start creating our own symbols. I honestly have hours of information on this subject, but I only have 1 hour with you guys today. So I had to really whittle it down to just the basics. First, we're going to look at what type of graphics are available out there that we can use with CET. Then we're going to talk about the tools that are available within CET to customize those graphics. Then we're going to take a look at some issues that come up as you're going along, and I'm going to show you some workarounds and some troubleshooting on those. And then we're also going to be adding spec information directly into those symbols so that they're going to be recognized by your calculation, and then they're going to transfer through a CIF file or go through direct link into Hedberg. Okay? So the first thing that I do when I need a symbol is I go out directly to a manufacturer's website like this one here, Boss Design. I knew that they were not supported by an extension or project symbols, but I wanted to specify this shuffle high back chair. So I can go directly to their website, and luckily they have a download section where I can go and I can download graphics directly from their website, and I can use those graphics within CET. So I'm looking for graphics like 3D AutoCAD graphics, or I'm looking for SketchUp graphics. Now notice I did say 3D AutoCAD because you can download a 2D AutoCAD file, but it's not going to give you anything for your 3D rendering, right? And that's your ultimate goal. So you want to look for those specific 3D files. Go ahead. Now, when it comes to deciding, because sometimes you get to a website and you have a choice, you can download either CAD or SketchUp. And a lot of times people want to know, well, which one do you prefer to work with? I don't have a hard, fast rule for which one I want to work with because I really just want the best quality graphic that I can find. So in this case, what I would do is I would actually download both of these file types. And I would go ahead and insert both of them directly into CET and then do a side-by-side comparison. So in this case, I downloaded both of those file types, put them side by side in CET, And then I just do a very quick rendering of them exactly the way they are. I don't put any finishes on them. I don't make any changes to them. I just do a very basic rendering, and I can quickly identify which graphic is the better quality. So on the left-hand side, the blue chair, that was the Sketchup file that I downloaded. And then the symbol on the right is the 3D AutoCAD version. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to go with the 3D AutoCAD graphic. That's clearly a more superior graphic. The SketchUp file, I could work with that, but it's going to need some work. Like you can see, it looks like it's been through a fire or something, right? Like you've probably seen this before on graphics. It's just the graphics not very good. There's these shadows that are coming through, and I've found the only way to really mitigate those shadows is playing around with lighting, and sometimes you have to put very specific targeted lighting directly on that symbol. And you know how that is. That's all trial and error to figure out what setting works the best, right? So in this case, I'm not going to waste my time with that. I'm just going to go with the good graphic and keep moving. So that's my first tip between choosing between those file types. And then as you can see on the bottom, I took that 3D graphic and I was able to make modifications using Edit Graphics. I was able to apply my finishes from Material Lab, and everything rendered out perfectly, just the way I wanted it to. And you all probably are familiar with working with SketchUp files and AutoCAD files at this point. So what about those times when you go to a website and there is nothing to download? Or maybe you go to the SketchUp 3D warehouse and you search and you just can't find anything, right? Well, when that happens, what I do is I create something called a symbol mashup. And this is just a term I totally made up on my own. And basically, all that it means is I take a minimum of 2 different graphics and I mash them together. Now, it doesn't have to, sorry. It doesn't have to be just 2 graphics. It could be 3 graphics, 7 graphics, 13 graphics. I could merge as many graphics as I want to create the symbol that I need. And these graphics could be, they could be anything. They could be a SketchUp file. They could be 3D AutoCAD file. I can get a symbol from an extension. I can get a symbol from Project Symbols. I can create my own custom shape in CET. And I can take all of those different graphic types and I can merge them together. So when you think about it, there's these endless possibilities that you can create, right? So what we're going to do today is we're just going to focus on some simple mashups so that you can get an idea of how the process works. Because hopefully you will all go back home and you will try this on your own, okay? All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is these 2 chairs. We're going to create these 2 chairs that I found from Soho Concept, which has nothing to download from their website. But the first thing I will do is I will look at these chairs, and you can look at furniture and it'll remind you of a million other pieces of furniture, right? You can pick up little nuances. And so I look at the chair on the left, and it reminds me of 3 or 4 other chairs that I've seen. And then the one on the right, that's a pretty basic chair. It's not too fancy, other than it has these flared out arms, which are a little bit different. But I know of a chair that also has flared out arms as well. So I've already got in my mind some different things I know I can start using and working with to create these. So let's take a look at how we would go about doing that. So for the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that Bottega chair, which was the red chair. And I'm actually going to grab 2 chairs from 2 different extensions, and I'm going to bring them in. And these are 2 different manufacturers, 2 different chairs. Why is it linking? Here we go. 2 different extensions. And if I didn't have access to these extensions, I could still go into Project Symbols and I could download those catalogs and I could get the graphics there as well. So this technique we're going to use is going to work for either one. It doesn't matter if it's project symbols or if it's from an extension. Either way, it works. So the first thing I'm going to do after I bring these two chairs in is I'm going to take a look at them and I'm going to say, okay, what parts of these chairs do I need and what parts don't I need? Because I want to take the top of this chair and I want to merge it with the bottom of this chair. So I'm going to go into Edit Graphics, and I'm going to make both of these editable. Now I need to start taking away the pieces that I don't need from each chair. So if I take a look at this chair, I don't want the base of this chair. And I can see it's made out of a lot of different meshes, a lot of different pieces. So I'm going to open up my Mesh dialog box. And if you're not familiar with this box, I recommend always using it when you're in Edit Graphics because it's a very powerful tool. And in this case, the person that made this symbol made it really easy on me because I can quickly see that by naming these, I can tell which meshes make up the top of the chair. So that means the rest of them are going to be the bottom. So I can grab all the pieces that make the bottom of the chair by holding my Control key down, and I can just select all those meshes, and then I can use Edit Delete and delete the base in one swipe. And then I can do the same thing for this chair, except I'm going to take away the top of it. So I'm going to grab both the layers called Seat, and I'm going to delete those. Then it also looks like there's some brackets that need to go as well, so I'll take those. Uh-huh. Yep. So it is right up here. If you see my mouse moving. But just literally open that, and then it changes as you select different pieces. Uh-huh. Yes.
If you hadn't done that in the mesh dialog box, if you just clicked on the base, clicked on the bracket, clicked on the wheels, and tried to delete them one by one there, would it have deleted the whole chair, or could you have pulled it apart without doing it in the mesh dialog?
I could do it without the mesh dialog. It's just going to take me a little longer to figure out all the little pieces. So for me, I'm all about efficiency, so I want to just grab all of it and get rid of it. But yeah, either way works.
I found it funny that you didn't have to ungroup them too. I always thought they were like grouped together and you had to ungroup them. Is it not true?
Well, it depends on the symbol. You know, some symbols are really complicated and they have so many meshes, and then they start grouping them together, and then you have to break them all down. But in this case, these were just easy. Yeah. Okay, so now that I have these two parts, I'm going to take a look at the top of this chair, and it looks like more of a two-piece design, and that Bottega chair I was looking at looked more like a one-piece molded design. So I can just make some pretty easy changes to this graphic just to get it looking a little bit closer to that one-piece style. And so I can do that really easily by just selecting the seat cushion, and I'll use the stretch tool, and I'll just grab the side of that cushion, and I'm just going to pull it into the side of the chair a little bit more. And I'll do that on both sides, and then I'll do it on the back. And then for the front, I'm just going to pull the front edge out, and I'm just going to pull a little closer to the front edge of the chair, like that. And so now when I look at it, and once it's got finishes applied to it, it's going to look more of like a one-piece design. So then I'm going to take the base of my chair, bring it over. I'm going to get it lined up with the top. Get it a little closer so I can see. And then when I take a step back, it's like, okay, you know, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. But it's still two separate pieces, so I need one symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of those pieces together, and I'm going to use Edit Graphics, and I'm going to use the Unite tool down here at the bottom. And when I use this tool, I get this little pop-up window that says Group 2, and it gives me some options. And sure. After I united them, I get this pop-up box right here that says Group 2, and it gives me these 3 options. And basically what this is CET is saying, okay, there's 2 different symbols here, and you're putting them together. How am I supposed to recognize this now once they've become one piece? And so I just know from experience that data symbol is the orange box chair that I used. And I know that the ACS model is for the all-steel chair that I used. And then for new snapper, you would think I'd want to group it to new snapper because it seems like it's a new category and I'm making a whole new chair, right? And you could try this on your own, but personally, I avoid using new snapper because I have found that when I do that, it gives me some problems later down the road when I want to add my spec info. And so I just avoid the new snapper for right now. And at this point, it doesn't matter to me which one of these other categories I pick because I need to strip all the spec info out of it anyway and put in my own info. So I'm just going to go with data symbol for now and just say, okay. So now it's still showing some intelligence. As you can see when I hover over it, it's still being recognized as an orange box chair because that's what I grouped the symbol to. So now I need to strip all that intelligence out of the symbol. And I'm going to use this graphics only tool within Edit Graphics to do that. And this tool is really great for any time you want to just literally take all of the spec info, all the snapping info, all the intelligence out of a symbol. I use graphics only. And you can do that if you just want something generic in your drawing that doesn't need to be specified. But we're going to use this tool a couple of times, so you're going to see some other uses for it as well. But in this case, I'm going to use it to strip all the intelligence out of this furniture symbol so that it no longer is being recognized by the calculation. It's just going to be a graphic. So this is a little troubleshooting tip I'm going to show you guys because I've noticed this has been happening and I've tested it on some other people's computers, so I know it's not just my computer. But I've noticed a little glitch with this graphics only conversion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut this symbol from this alternative and I'm going to paste it into a blank alternative. And this is where I'm going to go ahead and convert it so that I can show you what it does. When I use my graphics only and I convert it, everything looks fine. But the minute that I start moving it around, I have all of these little shadow graphics that follow it. Like, I'm not copying this symbol, I'm just moving it around. And it like leaves these shadows, right? And the only way to really clear those out is to completely shut your drawing down and then reopen it, and then they're gone. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm busy. I got a lot to do. I don't have time to sit around and wait for my drawing to close and then reopen it again. So what I do is I'll just have a blank alternative where I can just take my symbol, I can convert it. Then once I convert it, I just cut it and I paste it back to where I was. And by doing that, it clears out that issue, right? So alternatives, does everyone know what an alternative is? Yes and no? Okay. So an alternative is when you open a drawing, you start a drawing, you just have the one drawing. But then if you wanted to have multiple iterations of that drawing, you can create an alternative of it, which is a copy of it, and then make changes to that, and then you have both drawings. I see some mouths open, like they're amazed. Yeah. No. It's just with that initial conversion. So now whenever I need to convert anything, I just take it to another alternative, convert it, bring it back.
So when you say
That's when I hit the graphics only tool. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's up in tools, and it's right here, alternatives. Yeah. Okay, so I had shown you that other chair. Let's see if I can go back to it. This chair here. So for the sake of time, since we got to keep moving, I already have created that chair, but I'll just show you what I did. I did that a little bit differently, and the only thing I did different was instead of using two symbols from two different extensions, I actually brought this chair in from an extension, but then I brought this chair in from project symbols. And so I went about this exact same process with these two symbols. I took them, I made them editable, I took away the parts I didn't need, I lined them up, I united them, I went and converted the graphic so then it's now one, and then I've applied my finishes at the end, and I got that chair. So I'm going to bring it over here. Here's a copy of it. So now once you've made the symbol, you can go about, whoops, I'm on with the wrong one. You can go about adding your finishes just like you would any other symbol with your Material Explorer. So I can go in here and I can paint my chair the color that I want. I'm going to put my finish here. And then now I've got my two chairs. And you can see that once they've been rendered, they render up and they look pretty good. You know, it's not going to be an exact identical replication of that other chair, but it's going to get, I can get pretty dang close. Close enough to where your client is going to get the idea of what it is that you're proposing to them, right? And then here's the other chair that I did after it was rendered as well. So, yes?
Where can you save those then to complement to future drawings?
You can make them a favorite. So if you right-click on it, you can go down to Save as Favorite right here. And then you can save it anywhere you want, like on your network drive or on your hard drive, and get it later. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got these two chairs, but they don't have their spec information, right? I mean, it's cool. We got the graphics that we need, but we still have to be able to specify these. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways to go about doing that. When I right-click on this symbol now, if you see down at the bottom of this list, I have all these options to add various types of info. Now, your list is going to look different than my list because it's dependent on the extensions that you have downloaded. But if you have Catalog Explorer downloaded, then you're going to have the option to add catalog info. So that's probably what the majority of you are going to want to use. But if you are a Smart Tools user, you're going to want to use the Add Steelcase Info option instead, because it's going to be a little more friendly with direct link and going into Hedberg. So I'll show you both ways of how we're going to do this. We'll start with the catalog info option. So when you open that, you get this dialog box. And this is basically, we're in Catalog Explorer, as you can see, but we're just under the Freeform section. And what this is this is essentially the pick list for Catalog Explorer. So down here below, this is the actual pick list that is associated with my symbol right now, so there's nothing in it. So you have to manually add this information, so you have to type this in yourself. But what happens is you automatically have these 4 columns that are by default will be there when you open this. You have part number, description, price, and individual tag. Now, you could add additional categories from this pull-down menu at the top, But honestly, these 4 columns are really all that you need to get your item spec'd. And some of these other columns, actually a lot of these other columns, they don't even transfer in through a SIF or through direct link or anything like that. So I don't even bother with them. I just stick with what I need. So I start by going into the part column, and you literally just click on a column and you just start typing. So you type in your part number, which I did down here. Then when you get to description, you type in the description of your item, but you also have to type in all the finish information and all the options that are needed for that part. So right now, this is pretty new, so it doesn't have the option to do multi-line text. If it did, you would have this area down here for options would be available to use, and you would be able to actually delineate all your different lines through that box. But in the meantime, while it's not available, you're just going to have to type it all up here in the description. Then you get to your price. Obviously, it's going to be your price, including all of your options and upcharges, right? And then in the individual tag, that can be anything you want. It's going to show up in your calculation, and it will transfer through a CIF file. But it's not, because of the way we had to create this symbol, it's not going to put an actual tag on your symbol, okay? But hopefully they're going to work on improving that. So like I said, right now, this is still kind of in the early works. I'm expecting it to get better in time. So just kind of keep an eye out for those improvements that they make. So is there any questions on this section here? Sure, let me grab her first.
So for your part number area, you basically make you're pulling in 2 different part numbers. That means you're using a base from one chair and then from another. You just link it up, or would
No, I'm actually using the spec info, let's see, from the manufacturer's website. If I can get back to my slide here. Okay. So yeah, when I'm at the manufacturer's website and I'm looking at these chairs, that's where I get my info. I get my part number for that chair. I get all the finish info for that chair from the website, or from their spec guide if they have something to download, you know. But yeah, you're creating this on your own. You're speccing it essentially by hand, right? Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes, and I will show you that. Yeah. Yep, we're going to get to that. And then, I'm sorry, you have one too.
So if it was a grade A fabric, you're doing one, you're doing a grade B fabric or a grade C fabric, you have to do something simple for each?
Well, if they have different finishes.
No, just like a different grade fabric. So if there's a different price difference.
Uh-huh. So you type that into,
So I put grade A in, what do I do if I need to put grade C in?
then you would type that in instead.
On a new symbol?
Are you wanting 2 different fabrics on one chair?
No, one fabric, but this time I may have grade A, next time I may have grade C.
Right, so you'd have to have a new symbol for that one, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and one more.
when you're in there and you're adding your description, if you needed, like, let's say you forgot to add or you wrote in the wrong fabric and you need to go back in and edit it, it seems like I can't go back and edit. I have to, like, retype out the full description. Is there a workaround that?
Not that I've seen. That's generally what I have to do as well. Yeah. Okay. So on this chair, we're going to add the spec info, but I'm going to show you, if you're a Smart Tools user, I'm going to show you, you're going to want to use the Add Steelcase Info option. And hopefully you're going to be familiar with this because this is the standard Steelcase pick list And there is a free form tab as well. And it works essentially the same way. You type in all your information up here. It's just that this does allow multi-line text, so you don't have to type all your spec info into the description field. You can just keep it simple, and you can put in the actual part number, a description, and then once you get it down here, you've added it to your pick list. That's when you can click on it again and hit the 3 dots, and then you get your free form options box. And then you can literally go in and you can add your options line by line. And so now we'll look at them in the calculation. I need to change my tag. Oh, and you can also add part tagging to these now, okay? So you've created your chairs. You can go in here, and even though they're not technically smart symbols anymore because they're not from an extension or anything, you can still use part tagging, and you can tag them by area. So we could put this one in the reception area, and then we can take this one here and we can put it in the cafe. And then we can go into the calculation, and you can subsection by your tags, of course. And you can see here that those 2 chairs are now being recognized by my calculation. Except that one. What did I do?
How did you get to the calculation window again?
By clicking on the price up here. And it opened. Something didn't quite go on this one here. What, guys? Okay. Well, I don't know what happened on that last symbol. But here's the one where I used the steel case info option, and you can see how it broke my options down into separate line items like that. And then you can collapse the details over here. Maybe the next one will work better, but I promise you it does work. Okay, let's try a different one. So let's go to this one here. So in this case, I wanted to make this Harrison table from Montes. Now they do have their own symbols that I could download directly from their website, but I wanted to do a custom live edge wood top. So I knew I was going to have to make an alteration to this graphic in order to get my live wood edge top. So I could use a SketchUp graphic for that. And I can take the SketchUp graphic and the 3D AutoCAD graphic, and I can merge them together as well. So we'll take a look at doing that next. So I downloaded the Montes Table, and I did the AutoCAD file for that. And so you would load that exactly the same way that you would load any architectural background. And when I inserted it, it was like, whoa, what is going on with this thing? Like, the 2D looks terrible, right? It looks like this table is in a million different little pieces. And then the 3D, well, it's there, but it's just down underneath the floor. So when you can't see something in 3D, look under the floor. It might be there. So yeah, you can easily move that up. If I use my page up buttons, I can bring that up and put it back on the floor. Okay. So it looks okay in 3D, but the 2D doesn't look good at all. Well, at this point, I'm not going to worry about that too much because at least I have a 3D graphic that I can use. So now I'm going to go to SketchUp, and I went into the 3D warehouse, and I just searched for a live edge wood top, and I found this plank. And so I downloaded that, and I can bring that in. So now here's my 2 pieces that I want to put together, and I've got a 3D AutoCAD graphic, and I have a SketchUp graphic. So let's talk about working with 3D AutoCAD graphics, because when you think about it, you have just inserted an AutoCAD file, which is essentially being XREF'd into your CET file. So if you had multiple tables in your drawing, you're going to have multiple XREFs in your drawing, and that's just going to bog your system down, right? So really what you want to do is you want to bind this to your drawing. You just want CET to look at it as a graphic. So there's actually a couple of different ways you can convert it. The first way, and hopefully this won't sound too convoluted to you guys, the first thing I could do is I could just go into Edit Graphics, and I can use that Graphics Only tool, and I could convert it like that. Now, when I do that, I would still be able to add my spec info later. In this case, I'm actually putting two different symbols together. I'm putting the Sketchup symbol with the AutoCAD symbol. So in this case, I could convert it a different way. And I could convert it by just right-clicking on it, and there is this option to unlink and convert CAD. Now, when I do this, when I use this option, you can see the file path has disappeared. It's no longer up in this box. So now it's no longer an XREF. Now it's bound into my file. But the only problem with going about it that way is now when I go back to right-click on that symbol, I don't have that ability to add info to it anymore. So I can't add my spec info to it now that I've converted it that way. But if I right-click on the SketchUp symbol, I do have those options. So if I'm going to merge both of these symbols together, I can tell CET to recognize it as the SketchUp symbol. And then that way I can still add my spec info to it. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. If I was only specifying the table and I wasn't adding anything else to it, I wasn't merging anything with it, then I would use the graphics only method of converting it. Everybody on my same page? Okay. Okay. So now that I've converted this and it's no longer an XREF, I can go into Edit Graphics and I can make both of these editable. Now, wait a second. What happened to the 2D of my table? It disappeared. But I still see my 3D is there. So here's another little troubleshooting tip. When that happens, I'm going to click on my 3D and I'm going to open up that mesh dialog box. I'm going to select all the layers by clicking on the top of the mesh tree. And then I'm going to use this button called AutoUV. And this is like a magic button that fixes a lot of issues. So when I hit that button, it's back. Okay. It's called AutoUV. So it's located inside the mesh dialog box. So that's why I love having this box, because there's actually some extra tools in it that aren't over here on the toolbar. And they're very helpful tools.
Can I ask you a question about when you bring in AutoCAD and you convert it?
Uh-huh.
So that it becomes easy. So say for some reason it was easier in AutoCAD to take one of our symbols, make the symbol the way that you want it,
Mm-hmm.
special, because we can still put all the text with it and everything in AutoCAD. And if I bring it in that way, would I still convert it the same way?
Yeah.
And then make it, and it still make it CT, and then it will just.
Yep. So yeah, you could, like, if you had the symbols in cap, like you knew there was a cap catalog for a symbol, you could take that cap symbol and just, make it a block or something, like an AutoCAD file, and just insert that into the drawing, and you could use that. Yep. Okay, so now I just need to put these two pieces together. So I just need to make some simple edits. I can go in, I need to take out the tabletop. So I can see this is actually a pretty easy graphic. It's made out of 3 pieces, which is perfect. So I'm just going to take the top and I'm going to get rid of that. And then if I wanted to take these 2 bottom pieces and make them one piece, I can do that really quickly. With the mesh dialog box, I can just grab both of these meshes and I can use the fuse button, and then that will fuse the 2 together. And so now there's only one mesh that makes up that piece. So sometimes that makes symbol creating a little easier. You can start consolidating all your pieces by fusing them together like this. So then I have my Sketchup file here, and I'm just going to bring it over and line it up. And then I'm just going to stretch it a little bit using my stretch tool. And I'm going to type in the exact dimension I need. And then I'm going to use my page up button to bring it up off the floor. Make sure it's under there. Okay. All right, so SketchUp graphic, 3D AutoCAD graphic, 2 separate pieces. I'm going to select both of these pieces, and I'm going to use my Unite tool again. And this time it's saying, okay, what do you want to group it to? This SYNMDWG is AutoCAD. Well, I don't want to pick that category because I took away the ability to add my spec info to that symbol, right? The SKP option is SketchUp. So I want to choose the SketchUp option in this case. So when I say SketchUp OK, I have one part. Now when I right click on it, I can add my spec info, just like I did before. And the question about having multiple part numbers. So in this case, this table is 2 separate part numbers. So I can add multiple part numbers to an item if I need to. So I already typed in my info up here for the base, which is right here. I'm going to add that below. Then I typed in the info for the top, and I added that to my pick list. And so now both of these part numbers are associated with that symbol. Let's see if my part tagging will work on this guy. I'm going to put him in the makerspace. Okay, so now we can see this symbol up here was made with the still case info option, so we have the multi-line text. Down here, these 2 were from the catalog info box. And you can see all my info is one continuous line of text. So part tagging is on the tools pull down, and it's at the very top. And then you can select one of these categories, or you can even create your own category. And then you can add tags below that category, and you can name them whatever you want. And then you can just, there's actually multiple ways of adding tagging. So you can you could actually draw an area rectangle around it, or you could do a custom shape around it, or you could tag individually or apply to selection. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere, right? We've created some parts and they're actually specified, and we have pricing, and they're tagged and everything, right? So far we're doing pretty good. So now our last thing we're going to do is we are going to look at our third mashup. So in this one, we're going to create this Ottoman with a scalloped base. And I actually want this Ottoman to have a button tufted top. So I'm going to use 3 different graphics. So far we've been using 2 graphics, but this time we're going to use 3 graphics. And one of them we're going to create ourselves using the custom shape tool. And then we're going to blend it with a furniture symbol from an extension. And we're going to combine it with a SketchUp graphic as well. So first thing we'll do is we'll start by making our scalloped base. And I'm going to do that using the custom shape tool. Now, if you're new to this tool, it's on the Tools tab. You go all the way down towards the bottom, and it's the third from the bottom, called Custom Shape Tools. And these are pretty easy tools. They're pretty self-explanatory, and it'll walk you through how to use these. As an example, if you wanted to do something easy, if you were playing around, you could use the Create Triangle tool, and you could try making something like a Parsons table, which that's a pretty easy design to build for practice. And I can show you once you create it and you apply your finish to it, it'll render up like this. So this was a crate and barrel console table that they had that I made. And you do that with a custom shape tool really easily. But we're going to do something a little trickier with our custom shape tool today. We're going to use the circle shape tool. So once you select that tool, it wants a starting point. So I'm just going to click here. And then you can drag it out to the size you want, or you can literally just type in the size that you need if you know what that is. So I'm going to put my exact dimension in. And here it is. So when you first draw your shape, all it is a flat 2D symbol on the floor. There's nothing 3D about it right now. You need to add thickness to it in order to give it some depth. So up here in your green options box, you have several different things you could do. You could raise the elevation of it. You can either pull it up and down with the stretch node there, or you could type in the exact elevation that you want in this box. But in this case, I'm just going to have this be on the floor, so I'm going to leave the elevation at 0. And then I can add thickness here by typing in the height that I need. And then I can choose to add the thickness going up from there or down from there. So in this case, I'm going to go from the floor up. So I'm going to leave it on up. And boom. Now it's a 3D object. So now I need to add the scallops to the edge, right? So there's another tool in here under custom shape called add point. And what this does is this adds, like, I call them nodes. I don't know if that's the right CET terminology. It's probably more of a CAD terminology. But to me, they're nodes. So when I look at this right now, I have 2 nodes. It's these yellow and black nodes here. And these give me the ability to stretch the piece. But what I need is I need to be able to stretch on multiple pieces of the edge of the circle all the way around, and I need each one to be evenly spaced, and I need each scallop to be equally sized. So this is pretty cool. This is probably one of my favorite things that you can do with the add point on a circle is when you select add point, it immediately clicks to the center of the circle, and then it tells you exactly where the midpoint is between the 2 nodes. So it does the math for you, which I love. So right now it's telling me this is the center point between those 2 nodes. So I can add one right there. Then it shows me automatically where the next middle one, and that is down here. And then when I add those nodes, it automatically showed me the midpoint between those two nodes that I just created. So I can just click on those, and each time I click and I add a node, it shows me the center point between the next two nodes. So I can go around the edge of the circle and I can add as many of these nodes as I need to add. And they're all going to be equally spaced all the way around the edge. So now that I have my nodes that I can use, now I need to grab the edge and I need to pull the edge of the shape inward to create those scallops, right? So I'm actually going to grab the green triangle, and you can see the different way that it stretches it. I can pull the edge of that circle inward, and there's a box up in the left that says distance, and I can type in the exact size that I need. So I'm going to type in 1.5 and say OK. Then I'll go to the next one. I'll pull it inward, 1.5, 1.5, whoop, 1.5, and I can just keep going all the way around the edge of the circle. And just for time's sake, I'm going to show you the one that's already done, so you don't have to watch me. And so now I have my scalloped base. Okay. So there's the bottom of my ottoman that I'm going to use. So now I need the middle layer of that ottoman, and I'm going to use a furniture symbol from an extension for that. So I'm just going to grab an ottoman, a round ottoman, doesn't matter who it's from. And then I can go into Edit Graphics. I can make it editable. Then I need to remove the pieces that I don't need, so I'm going to take out the little legs. And then I'm going to use the stretch tool to change the size. I'm going to change the height and bring that down. And now I have the center piece of my ottoman. And then last, I need the top. And I wanted to do a button tufted top. So I went into the SketchUp 3D warehouse and I found this. It's actually a giant floor cushion, but it'll still work. So I bring that in, and I can actually grab this and just stretch it and type in the size I need there. So there is the 3 pieces of my ottoman right here. So now I need to join them all together. So before I can join them all together, I need to make sure they're all editable. So I'm going to go back into Edit Graphics. I'm going to make each one editable. This one we already did. Okay, so now I've made them all editable. Now here's another little tip. Like I mentioned before, when you're creating symbols, I like to try to reduce my meshes down as much as possible. So before I go any further, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to click on my custom shape, and I see it's made out of 3 meshes. And as long as all 3 meshes are going to be the same color, I can fuse them all together. So I'm going to just grab them all from the top of the tree, and I'm going to hit fuse. And so now it's one piece. My ottoman is already one piece, so that's good. Then I click on the SketchUp symbol, and it's like, holy moly, there are like a million meshes on this thing. So I'm going to be painting the whole piece one color, so I'll just go ahead and I'm just going to fuse all these together into one piece. And that'll help reduce the size of it as well. Now I can take them and I can line them up on top of each other. But I kind of need to see through them to see what I'm doing as I'm layering them. So if you go up to the properties box, there's this little button that says fill, and if you uncheck that box, it will turn your graphics into just black and white line drawings in 2D. So then now I can see through them. And so then I can bring these pieces over and I can align them together. And I just need to move the top piece up to the top. Now there's my 3-piece Ottoman. Now I need to unite them, so I'm going to grab all of them together. I'm going to say unite. I'll just pick the SketchUp option. And now it's one piece. And I can go into Material Lab, and I can add my finishes. And then I go zoom in, and if you'll notice, the finish looks a little bit funny up here at the top. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then even down here around the sides of this, it even looks kind of funny. So I'm going to go back into my mesh dialog box. I'm going to select my symbol, and then I'm going to use that AutoUV button. And then that corrected my finish on that.
Can you go back one step and tell us again how to get it to be black and white?
Yes, that is a very easy one to go back to. So it's up here, properties. And then at the bottom of that box, there's a little checkbox next to fill, and you just uncheck that. And so now I've got my Ottoman, and I can render it, and it renders out. Looks pretty good rendered. And I can also right-click on it, and I can go to add catalog info, and I can add in my spec info. Yes.
When you go to enter that catalog info, can you pull that dialog box up again? Because you have like a bunch of lines up top, and that's not all for the Ottoman. Just the lines that you've been filling out throughout the day.
Oh, in this box up here.
There's a bunch of lines up there at the top where
Yeah.
it's part number, description, but you only have to click on one and you pull it down, and that's
That's because I didn't want you guys to sit here while I typed everything out, so I just pre-typed everything in advance.
if we did that like all day on the project, that's what we would see, everything we entered that day
Yes,
sitting up there.
you could do that. And another thing you could do is if there were some parts that you were going to specify a lot and like over and over on multiple projects, and you didn't want to have to retype that info every single time. Once you've typed it up here, and you could type several different items into this box, you can go up here and you can hit save. And when you hit save, it exports it into an Excel doc. So then you can save that Excel doc and then name it, I don't know, Soho Concept or whatever the brand is, right? So then later when you're in a new project and you want to grab that info, if you go up here to open, you can, I'm not going to do it right now, but if you hit open, you can go right back to where that Excel file is, open that Excel file, and it just repopulates it all right there. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so then I can tag this Ottoman. And I've got everything specified in my calculation, right? Okay. So you guys, you have enough information to be dangerous now, all right? So I just encourage you to go home and try it. Yep. Thank you.